Better start getting used to it. All government agencies will accept digital identity cards from Monday. More than 5,000 COVID-19 cases in one day. MOH calls it an unusual surge. And a 17-year-old makes history, becoming the first Singapore-born professional footballer in the Premier League. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Olivia Quinn. You can subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode. According to Malaysia's Tourism, Arts and Culture Minister, Malaysia and Singapore will discuss a dedicated air travel lane for vaccinated passengers. A meeting has been set up tomorrow with Trade and Industry Minister Gan Kim Yong. Currently, international tourists are only allowed to visit Langkawi under a travel bubble pilot slated to begin on November 15th. Looks like the F1 pit building at Marina Bay is being converted into a medical facility to care for COVID-19 patients. When the Straits Times visited this afternoon, the sign that says Formula One Singapore Grand Prix is still prominently displayed on the outside, but take a look inside and you'll see at least one hall has been separated into various sections with numbered beds and partitions built between them. On the walls are several signs for triage stations with machines and what appear to be screening stations set up below them. Workers told ST that the facility was meant to care for COVID-19 patients and will open in November. ST has contacted the Singapore Tourism Board and the Ministry of Health for comment. For the first time, Singapore's daily cases surpassed 5,000, with 5,324 reported yesterday. They comprised 4,651 cases in the community, 661 from the dorms and 12 imported. According to the Health Ministry, the numbers were unusually high because many cases were detected by testing labs within a few hours yesterday afternoon. MOH will closely monitor the trend for the next few days. And of the total 357 ICU beds yesterday, 142 were occupied by COVID-19 patients. 66 were critically ill and intubated and 76 being closely monitored. The overall utilization rate of the ICU is at 79.8%. Get ready for a new way of life. From this coming Monday, November the 1st, you'll be able to use the digital identity card in your singpass mobile app as an alternative to your NRIC. This is what it looks like on the singpass app interface. All government agencies will accept digital ICs when individuals use or apply for public services in person, except for when the law requires physical identity documents like national service enlistment, marriage registration, and checking into hotels. But here are some of the places where digital ICs will be accepted as proof of identity: at polyclinic registration counters, libraries when you borrow a book, ICA's passport collection booth, and HDB when you book a flat and collect your keys. I'm happy to welcome Mr. Chee Hau to share more on this. He's the Director of Planning and Prioritisation Directorate at the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office. Welcome to the show. Security immediately comes to mind when our personal data goes digital. The digital IC, it's very convenient for the majority of us. We're so used to doing everything on our phones. That being said, how can the government assure that using this form of IC is secure?
I think security is something we take very seriously for singpass as well as all our products. We are built-in security by design. So one of the features I actually really appreciate about the digital IC is that the IC number is masked by default. So it only shows the last 4 characters. So the consumer has a choice to decide whether to show the full NRIC number or not. Apart from that, we have built-in security features like animations of the holographic lion's crest. So when you take a look at it, you can see that it's animated. If it's not, then it's probably a fake or screenshots. We also have features such as preventing taking of screenshots or video captures so that it cannot be spoofed.
Chee Hau, SNDGO is looking to onboard more private sector companies to accept the digital IC. What are your plans to encourage this?
That's actually something very exciting that I'm looking forward to. We are starting by government taking the lead so that all government agencies will accept the digital IC as a form of identity at service centers, be it your libraries, and we even have it at, say, SingHealth polyclinics and so on. We hope to expand it. And I think it's going to be a great convenience to all our citizens and residents out there. Already, we have like more than 97% of our residents, citizens, PRs who have SingPass accounts. So adoption is very high, 3.2 million SingPass app users. And I think we're having some discussion in the private sector and do encourage all of them, companies out there, to start accepting this. I think you'll be providing a great service and convenience to your customers.
Well, the digital IC will not replace the actual card right now. Do you think the physical IC will ever be done away with for Singapore to be a smart nation?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, I would say certainly not now, never say never. But I don't think that's how we start out thinking about a digital IC. It's not really to replace or do away with something. I think it's to provide additional convenience, like really make lives better. That's the whole approach we have for Smart Nation. Use technology to improve lives.
All right, we've been speaking with Mr. Tan Chee Hau from the Smart Nation and Digital Government Office. Thanks very much for coming on the show, Chee Hau. In other news, Singapore's central bank expects economic growth in 2022 to be slower than this year, but still above trend as demand picks up for trade and services. While the Monetary Authority of Singapore didn't give an exact forecast, most economists are predicting growth of 4 to 5% for next year. MAS's outlook for this year remains at 6 to 7% growth. UOL Group and Singapore Land Group have clinched a tender to purchase en-bloc property WATTEN Estate condominium for $550.8 million. And if successfully completed, it will be Singapore's biggest residential collective sale by quantum this year. That may not last long, though, with the owners of Chuan Park Condo asking for $938 million in a tender that closes on November 18th. And from dream to reality, Wolverhampton Wanderers defender Harry Birtwistle is the first Singapore-born player to sign a professional contract with an English Premier League club. When asked if he would play for the Singapore national team one day, the 17-year-old said, "You never know, but for now his focus is 100% on being a Premier League footballer." Our first pick today has to be the upcoming Singapore Writers' Festival, which starts next Friday and runs until November 14th. Here to share more is Assistant Life Editor Olivia Ho. Olivia, I'm so intrigued by this year's theme, Guilty Pleasures. The organisers, chose it to challenge the distinctions about highbrow and lowbrow literature. Can you tell us more about that? And is it also a departure from, who and what the festival has featured in previous years?
Well, this year's theme is likely to raise some eyebrows because I think a lot of the headliners that they bring in are not people who you would consider to be, normal headliners for a literary festival. So, for instance, you've got people like Tan France, the fashion expert on Queer Eye, or R.L. Stine, who is the Stephen King of children's literature. He's, I think the second best-selling. His Goosebumps is the second best-selling series in history. And I think a lot of people look at this and be like, is this really literature? But I think the festival has, taken quite a big step into challenging these assumptions and, trying to make literature more accessible, get people talking about it instead of having it shut away in some dusty room.
Olivia, you mentioned a few writers who will be at the festival, like Tan France and R.L. Stine. What are your personal favorites at this year's lineup?
Okay, so I'm really looking forward to Ocean Vuong, the poet. He's a Vietnamese-American poet. He's won the T.S. Eliot Prize. So he wrote this really beautiful book called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Also, G. Willow Wilson, who is the co-creator of the Miss Marvel comics, Kamala Khan, the first Muslim American Miss Marvel. So she's also a novelist of these great fantasy novels. I'm really looking forward to seeing her.
Well, thanks, Olivia. In the spirit of guilty pleasures, I can't wait to hear what Regency romance writer Julia Quinn has to say. If you recall, she's most famous for writing the Bridgerton series. If you prefer to watch an entire TV series at a stretch as opposed to, waiting for a new episode week after week, then why not consider K-drama Yumi Cells? Its penultimate episode airs tomorrow on ITE, and according to journalist Jan Lee, it's very binge-worthy. So Jan, tell us why.
Okay, so Yumi Cells is quite an interesting K-drama. I don't think I've seen something like it because it is basically partially animated plus live action. Because the concept of Yumi Cells is adapted from a webtoon of the same name. So the concept is this woman named Yumi, and then the cells in her brain, right, that control all her thoughts and feelings and movements. So they're like sort of like anthropomorphic cells. And of course, it doesn't have any scientific bearings, but there are things like the concept is very cute because, for example, there's things like the hunger cell. So her cells will like push her brain, right, to work, like grind, right, when she's working and she needs her brain to function well. But then suddenly the hunger cell will come out of nowhere and like stampede over everyone because the hunger cell is hungry, right? So unless you feed the hunger cell, so unless Yumi eats, she cannot think, she cannot function, which is very similar to like the way, human beings like us, sometimes like, you're in the middle of work and then it's like 4 p.m. and you're just like, I just need a snack like now, or else I would just like faint at my desk, or I would just like be unable to concentrate on work. So it's sort of like similar. But Yumi Cells is ultimately actually a bit of a romantic, I would say like dramedy, because as much as there are very comical elements, the romance is actually quite grounded in the sense that it's very normal. So like the two leads, right, instead of like, like crash landing on you, she parasail and paraglides or don't know where into North Korea and lands directly on the man of her dreams, right? It's like, they meet because Yumi's colleague decides to introduce Yumi to this person that he thinks is very suitable for her. So they meet through friends. The cells are very cutely animated, and they are like very cute little things like, in everybody's cell village there's a bulletin board, and that bulletin board is where all your most important thoughts are kept. So you are reminded of these thoughts, So I think it sort of talks about human emotions in a way that's very childlike almost, but there's a certain depth to it, I think.
Well, thanks very much, Jan. It kind of reminds me of Pixar's Inside Out, right? Well, let's bring in Heidi Koo, our ST Food online editor, for the foodies out there. Heidi, your pick today is Nan Thai Eating House, a nondescript eatery in Kim Kiat Road that serves simple, home-style Taiwanese dishes. So please give us your top recommendations.
Okay, my top recommendation will be the salted crispy chicken. It's $5 for a small portion and $8 for a medium. If you're going to, make your way there, or if you are calling for delivery, if you happen to live in the vicinity, this is one dish that you really must try. It's so tender and so juicy. I was mistaken, that I thought it was chicken thigh meat, and it turned out that it wasn't. It was chicken breast meat. And the owner, she makes it herself from she doesn't buy pre-processed chicken meat to deep fry it. She actually buys raw chicken breast meat, cuts it up, marinates them, usually overnight, and it's just a very simple marinade. She refused to tell me the secret ingredients, but you can really taste there's garlic in it, and it's not overly garlicky, such that it's a bit of a turn-off, but it's just perfect. The seasoning is perfect. It's salty, it's peppery, and it's crispy. It's so crispy. I thought I had I was eating bits of chicken skin, but I was shocked when she told me there wasn't any chicken skin. It's just pure chicken breast meat. So I think she's got the marinade and the batter really, really perfect. And that is really one dish that anybody who goes there, you really have to try it, even if you're on a diet. And another dish is the vermicelli with oysters. I got 6 oysters. Sometimes if the oysters are bigger, she'll give you 5. It's a really big bowl. It's big, it's comforting, it's warming, it's appetizing, and it's just $5. This is really one place that I would suggest you go with a friend or someone, because you want to try a couple of dishes and the portions are so generous. you probably have difficulty, eating up everything all on your own. So it's better for sharing.
Well, Hedy, thank you very much for those mouth-watering options. As always, the Friday pages in tomorrow's paper will have more live picks for you. In the meantime, visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quinn. See you tomorrow on The Big Story.